Why, hello guys! Welcome back to another episode of Everyday EDC. Today, we have a review for you. A review of the Ferrum Forge Fortis 2.0. Alrighty, so the Ferrum Forge Fortis 2.0. This thing is a monster. It is a monster not only in your pocket, but it's heavy, it's ergonomically awesome, the detent is super strong, and yeah, this thing's awesome. So let's get into it. So first and foremost, we have, yeah, you guys don't even know about that. So this is a titanium titanium scales with some milling, and the milling provides great traction in hand. The aesthetics of the milling are a little in question, but we do have a pocket clip here, which isn't really deep carry. This much of your pocket is still hanging out. That being said, it is ambidextrous, and there is milling in the pocket clip as well. There is a cutout right there. There's chamfered edges all the way around. We have the cutout right here so that you can access this cutout in the blade, and it works perfect. Absolutely perfect. We also have the same cutout over here with chamfered edges, so there's no sharp edges anywhere on these scales. We have something interesting going on here with the pocket clip. Right here you can see that they did a cutout for the pocket clip so that you don't have, so the pocket clip can be shorter, but when you access it, it's a little, I don't know, I have a little bit of problems with that pocket clip because the detent is so strong, the access to it, you don't get too much leverage. Now, notice it flips open just fine, but it does take a little bit of effort. The reverse flick, on the other hand, is super easy. It's very difficult to access it with your thumb. I can do it, but I find myself pressuring on the frame lock on the other side, which makes it, I would rather Spidey flick it. This is my preferred method of opening here. As we can see here, we have an over travel stop, which is nice. This knife is actually, for the price, and we'll talk about that later, but it's kind of basic in a very good way. So let's see here. This titanium, by the way, is stone-washed on both sides with a stone-washed blade to match. We have what they're calling a drop point. I don't know that I would call that a drop point. It's like a modified drop point, clip point, sheep's foot type of thing. Maybe even close to a spear point if it was a little bit more rounded on the outside. But you do have a swedge that runs the length of the spine after the cutout to provide this tip with a little bit more. So that's nice. You have this ramp right here, or this dip, that your thumb falls perfectly into when you're gripping it, and it feels really, really nice. You have this thumb ramp right here with some pretty sharp jimping, but it locks you into play very well. To the point where, you know what, I'm not too mad that it's sharp. I haven't noticed it. It's like sharp, but knocked down sharp, so it doesn't bother you. You have a forward finger choil right here, so that when you're gripping it, oh, yeah, you're perfectly good right there. It feels great. Ferrum Forge ergonomics all the way around. Just fantastic. Forgot to mention a little bit of jimping on the flipper tab there. Whatever. Full flat grind, almost, coming from the flat of the blade here. I would call this about a 3/4, and then it goes to a full flat grind up at the top. Makes this for a very good slicer. It's not the sliciest blade out there, but it's a great workhorse of a slicer, or of a cutter, of a knife. I guess that's what I'm trying to say there. I haven't checked this pivot yet. Forgive me on that. I'm not sure if this is a captive or not. It doesn't appear to be. This knife is about 2 years old, so I wouldn't imagine that is the case. It's, again, not a huge deal. Let's check the hardware of this guy. The pivot coming in right at a T8. I have a setup here for this, by the way. And the body screws coming in right at T6. There's only two body screws on either side. Those go just for the tip. No pun intended. And then you have 4 screws on this side, 2 for the pocket clip, 2 for the body. The pocket clip is sturdy and in there, even though there's only 2 screws and it's not recessed, it is locked down just fine. Action on this guy. We're running on some bearings. Let me double check my notes, see if they're ball bearings. They don't say if they're steel or ceramic. With a little bit of research there, I didn't find out, and I haven't taken them out to really notice. I have a tendency not to want to take apart every single knife just because the time in there and the 30-some knives that I have waiting on the list are, yeah, it'd be a lot of time. So one of these days I'll take it apart, and if I have to update you or I come across some information, I will let you know. So you guys know that this knife is a direct, I guess, pass down of the original Ferrum Forge Fortis. Now, the reason that they made a production model, which I think the other one was a production model, maybe you'd call it mid-tech, that one was starting out at $550. I'm not going to put the comparison here. It looks like a very similar blade shape. The handle looks a little bit more beefy. And I'm sure there's a little bit more custom work that went into it to make it to that price point. But this guy was coming in at $250 when it was on the market. Unfortunately, it is very difficult to find these days. I think that they kind of replaced it with the Minax based on the milling pattern on the scales. But Ferrum Forge designs are all so reminiscent of each other that there's another knife that comes out and comes along, and it's very, very similar to this, so it kind of fills that void. So if you guys can't get your hands on the Ferrum Forge Fortis 2.0 and you want to, just check out the other Ferrum Forge designs as they drop. Trust me, the ergonomics and the blade and everything, they're so similar because they follow such a standard just DNA pattern because it's so good. Like I said, the action damn near fall shut, but keep in mind, this is a second-hand knife. I got this from the secondary market. The blade centering, perfectly center. There's no back and forth whatsoever, no up and down. And the action is awesome. Just awesome. Very, very fidget-friendly, fun knife to use. Now, on the inside, we do have this stop pin. Right, let's see here. Right here. And we do have two barrel spacers right there. Now, there is no milling on the inside of these titanium slabs, and it's a little dirty from being in my pocket. No milling whatsoever. The one thing that's really cool that they did here is the relief cut for the frame lock is on the inside. That's sweet. You see a lot of relief locks on the outside. For example, here's the Tucson TS129. That's what a lot of the relief lock or the reliefs look like on the liner or the frame locks. But this one doesn't, and it kept it inside, which I really, really like. I appreciate. It keeps the whole side uniform. It doesn't give anything to catch on, because I know if they don't knock down those edges, it becomes a very sharp point to catch on. Let's get into some specs. So the overall length of the Ferrum Forge Fortis 2.0 is coming right in at about 8¼ inches. The blade length is coming in at a whopping 3.5, and the cutting edge is about a little less than 3¼ due to that large finger choil. The weight of this guy, let's see here, coming in at a 5.12 ounces. You know, relatively heavy, but for a chunk of titanium and a pretty thick blade, I'm not mad. And thick, I'm talking tall and width-wise. Speaking of the blade, let's go into your specs here. The overall thickness of this blade is coming in at almost 160 thousandths, about 155 thousandths, so that's pretty darn thick. That's why this thing's weighing so much, because it has such a thick blade stock and no relieving on the titanium. But look at this cutting edge. Coming in with that full flat grind of 22 thousandths behind the edge. That is awesome. In my opinion, 20 to 25 thousandths is where you need to be to have a good working knife. Civivi's coming in at 15, maybe 14. Some of them even got down as low as like 12 or 13 thousandths behind the edge. Super fun to use, super cool. It's just like, it's basically a razor blade at that point in time, but not going to be the most durable, especially considering you could probably just bend it with your thumbs, right? The width of these scales coming in at exactly 1/2 inch, which is what I say is a pretty standard width when it comes to most knives that don't have contoured scales. The tallest part in your pocket is going to be 1 inch and 450 thousandths. I'm trying to find the right way to say that to make it relevant to you guys, because most people are like, that doesn't make any sense. But let's just say 1.45 inches. 1.45 inches is almost an inch and a half. To put that into perspective, your PM3 is coming in at a 1.6 inches, 1.66, sorry. Your PM2 height in your pocket is coming in at a 1.6, and your Mannix 2 is coming in at a whopping 1.74. So it's going to be a little bit better than those, but not quite as good as some others. Let's get you guys some size comparisons. As you guys know, I do a lot of size comparisons, and for those of you that don't, I do a lot of size comparisons. The reason I do so many size comparisons is so you guys can see a knife that you've associated before in your life that you can compare it to. Hopefully I find something. I try to pick some common knives to show. As we can see here, the angle is showing that this is looking a little bit longer because I have it tilted slightly forward, so when I'm flicking it and stuff, I'm not off camera. But the Rat Model 2 is much smaller. The Rat Model 1 is approximately the same size. Looking at it up and down, just to give you guys a point of reference there. The Fortis may be 1/8 of an inch shorter than the Rat Model 1. Let's go into some Civivis. Here is your Civivi Daris and your Civivi Dogma. I have put the Brigand away. I've used him for some time. I need to get the Daris some action again, right? This is coming in at probably 1/2 an inch longer than the Dogma, if not more, and probably about almost 2 inches longer than the Daris. Next on the list is we got our Feldspar sandwich. I have my mini Feldspar, and I have my large Feldspar, or regular size Feldspar. The regular size Feldspar is coming in about 1/2 an inch shorter, and the mini's coming in much shorter than the Ferrum Fortis 2.0. Last but not least, we have our Spatico sandwich. We have your PM2, or Para 3, and your Spatico Shaman. The Para 3 actually is looking longer than it is because of the way it sits. It sits up on that pocket clip the way, right there, that looks better. Much shorter than your PM3, or your Para 3. And it's, you know, for those of you Shaman lovers, like me, it's just about the same length as the Shaman, and actually almost the same exact cutting edge due to that large finger choil on both. So as a quick recap, this has a tumbled titanium with this milled titanium scales, a pocket clip that is reversible, and has that center cutout right there. What we really like is this cutout not being there, the relief cut in the frame lock. I love that it's not there. You have a nice little cutout so you can access the finger hole, or the cutout in the blade, very easily. And a forward finger choil right there, taking up a good portion of your blade, but it's a great forward finger choil. It's great ergonomically. Ferrum Forge kills the ergonomics. You have a full flat grind on this blade up here with a swedge that comes down to strengthen that tip very, very well. With this, what we would call a drop point, spear point-ish type of blade. You have this landing zone right here for your thumb that lands on it perfectly. It's a perfect landing zone. I don't really know that I would ever... that feels pretty good too. It's very basic. I called it basic before because all we have is some barrel spacers there. No cutout in the titanium as far as relief cuts or weight relieving, whatever. We have a stop pin right there and some bearings. That is all this knife actually possesses. So it kind of begs the question, why was it $250? Other than the fact that it is a Ferrum Forge and Ferrum Forge designs are highly sought after, I'm not sure why it's $250, but all I can tell you is this came out 2 years ago. This year, 2021, 2020, with the prices the way they are, I'd be willing to bet this would get priced lower, probably closer to the $220 range. I didn't even mention the blade steel. The blade steel is S35 VN. Typical of Ferrum Forge, typical of that 150 to 250 mark, especially 2 years ago, you'd see it more close to the 250 mark. This year, we're starting to see it closer to the lower 100s, which is pretty cool. Last but not least, I really didn't mention too much about the chamfered edges, but all the edges are knocked down on here. It's very nice. This tumbled finish on the blade really knocks down the edges up here, making this blade very, very comfortable in hand, and there's nothing that's going to catch you. So when I'm talking ergonomically, when I'm talking everything, it's just very, very comfortable. This thing's a beast for comfort in your hand. If you've ever held a Ferrum Forge, say Falcon, if you've ever held any Ferrum Forge, realistically, that's just not one of their smaller models. Even the Stinger, like the Stinger's a tiny model. but it doesn't have the beef that this does. I'm talking the thicker models, maybe the Archbishop or something of that nature, the Min-X. It feels very substantial and very, very good in hand. I did not mention this is also made in China. Just so you know, it's made in China. So, my likes about this knife. Excellent ergonomics. Freaking love the ergonomics from Ferrum Forge. The fidget factor is absolutely through the roof. Just absolutely. And it makes such a satisfying sound. Oh yeah. Strong detent, so when you go like this, oh yeah, locks into place just fine. It has a very dense, strong feeling in hand. So when you pick it up, it's 2 lumps of titanium and a thick blade. And for me, I prefer the substantial feeling in hand. Some people don't. They like a little bit of a lighter knife. I like the thick, knowing that I have that knife in hand, and I know that it's I know that I got a tool. I know if it falls out of my pocket because I can feel it. Not crazy, but you can feel it. I really appreciate that they gave it a relief cut on the inside of the frame lock. Really, it just shows the attention, or at least the design that they chose to do kind of avoids hot spots in any way, shape, or form. I really don't like the way that this I really don't like the way that this is set up, because if you're gonna do this downward portion here needs to be a little bit more ramped up instead of ramped down, because when you go to flick it, it just kind of rolls off. You really have to put some effort into that. Not to mention there is a very strong detent behind that flipper tab. Other than that, I really have no complaints, other than the milling pattern that they choose sometimes. So ergonomics, I'm going to rate this at a 9.5. Ferrum Forge is always going to land in the 9.5 to 10 range. It's just great. Perfect is a hard thing to reach. I don't know that I've felt a perfect ergonomic knife, short of maybe the Sham, and the Sham is pretty close. Action. This is going to get a 9 on the action. I'm going to start rating these knives, by the way. I put that all in my notes. I got a new notebook and stuff, so I'm making my notes in there. We're going to give this a 9. I would give it a 10 if it wasn't for the way this flipper tab works and the strong detent combination of the two. I love the strong detent, but the way this flipper tab is lined up with the strong detent, it makes it a little bit difficult. That's why it didn't get any higher than a 9, but a 9 is still pretty good. Fit and finish, I give it a 9.5, but realistically, guys, there's not much to this knife. A stop pin, 2 barrel spacers, a set of bearings, and that. I mean, it's kind of hard to jack up the fit and finish. I'm not going to give it a 10 because it's so simple, but it's pretty perfect. I don't have any complaints whatsoever. And it being a secondhand knife, it's hard to judge the little dings that go around. Aesthetics. I mean, guys, the aesthetics on this, I like the aesthetics, but it like I said before in the unboxing, it kind of leads to something else once you see it. You can never unsee it. So the aesthetics are wishy-washy. You don't want to be like, I love those aesthetics, because that's something else, right? Realistically, if you were to ignore the milling pattern, it is a very, very attractive looking knife. I think this knife is great. I love the thick blade shape there. It just looks so cool. And the value. So if we're going off of its original value at $260, 2 years ago, this might have been a higher rating for the value. But if you're going to charge me $260 for this year, I don't know that I agree with that. 260 seems a little high, because, I mean, there's not much that went into this. The milling, the chamfering, yeah, they put some design detail into it, but it's basic, and that's what makes it a great knife. But also, when you make a basic knife, it's hard to say, yes, I want to pay $260 for it. I see this knife coming in at around $220. If I saw it at the $220 price point, I would say yes, all day, yes. So guys, this is the Ferrum Forge Fortis 2.0. Is this a forever knife? I don't know. It's not. It speaks to me. I love it, but I have so many other things out there that I'm just not sure that I'll keep this forever. But I'll keep it for some time, and so we'll call it a temporary forever knife for now. My name is Tyler. This has been Everyday EDC. You guys stay sharp, stay safe. Thank you guys so much for watching. It means the world. Gonna do a plug here. I just started a Patreon, guys, and it is not for me. It is for you. You guys are going to be like, what the hell? Go watch the Patreon video, but basically, the way it works is 100% of what is put into the Patreon goes directly back to you guys. Whether that be in the form of huge discounts on the knives that I choose to sell, aka the Fortis, whenever I sell that, And every 2 months, I'm doing a giveaway based on the amount of input the Patreon has. So let's say the Patreon makes $100 a month. You guys will be able to see that. I'm going to give a $100 or more knife away every 2 months. So between those two, it kind of offsets my cost in the selling of the knives at a cheaper rate and purchasing a knife to sell or to give away in the Patreon. If the Patreon numbers skyrocket, the higher it goes, the more expensive of a knife I'll give away, or the more multiple knives I will give away. Or I might even go to a one day a month, or 1 month giveaway instead of 2 month. We'll just see how it all happens. So there's my plug. My name is Tyler. This is Everyday EDC. You guys stay sharp. Stay safe. Thank you guys so much for watching. It means the world. Have a great day, guys.